have pretty much everyone's dream job. All day I get to play with Lego bricks for a living. I'm Ryan McNaught and I'm a Lego certified professional. Our mission in life is to push the boundaries of what the Lego brick can do. And hopefully that's what we do. Back in 2007, I was very fortunate that I had twin sons, so 2 little boys came along, and my mum had kept all my Lego from when I was a little boy, and of course started playing with my kids. I managed to build a few models with the kids, and Lego saw some of those pictures and creations on the internet and got in touch with me and said, let's do a few things together and let's do a few more things and a few more things, and eventually now it's turned into this. We have a dedicated workshop and it's in an industrial complex in Melbourne. Obviously, the bigger a model is, the more planning and things are required. If they're relatively quite small, if we look at, say, our redback spider, we can basically get building right away. I made the very silly mistake years ago of building a big Lego model, then looking at the door, and of course it wouldn't fit out. So often a lot of our models are based around logistics. How do we move them around? How do we ship them? All of that kind of stuff. So scale is really a question of not so much what we want to make, but what's feasible. But most of the time it involves a fair bit of research first. And only then will we pick up some bricks and start building. Some models, like if we look at our rocket, for example's sake, that was nearly 600 hours to build. Things like our giant whale, for example's sake, that only took, 100 and something hours versus something of a similar size might take 400 or 500 hours. So it really does depend on how complex a model is. About 4 or 5 years ago, we made a giant big helicopter and it got pushed off the table and totally and utterly destroyed. Couldn't quite stomach to repair it straight away. And so, yeah, we sat down a few months later. It's about 180 hours worth of work. No matter what happens, we can rebuild it. That's what it's designed to do. This whole exhibition here uses about 2 and a bit million Lego bricks with another 1 million and a bit, which everyone gets to play with and build themselves. So all up, you're looking at around about 3 to 4 million bricks, give or take. To give you an idea of how big that is, you're talking about 2 big double semi-trailers. When you're thinking about what it is that you want to build something you're really passionate about. For example, like if you really love trucks, make Lego trucks and it'll really come through in your Lego models. If you're passionate about architecture, build something that you dream of. So whatever topic that you're passionate about, that's what you should build and it'll really come through in your models. We'd made a Concorde, the world's fastest supersonic plane. And I was talking to a kid about that and he said that I had to build this thing called the Antonov 225, which is the world's largest plane. So sure enough, I've built it for this show. I wanted to make the Sydney Opera House. That was one of the ones I wanted to do, and that's about the 4th version of it that I've made. And that rocket ship was on my list for a very long time. That's the rocket that's going to take man to Mars. So, it's quite a big thing in human existence. So that was kind of the latest and greatest one. I've got a couple more that I'm kind of sworn to secrecy, which I'm going to do. There's always plenty on the list. So this concept of the ship, which you see behind me here, is called a cutaway. And the inspiration for this came from when I was a child. I used to read these books called cutaway books, where basically they were an object and they were sliced in half so you could see how they work. They take a lot longer to make, but I think they're worth it. So my tip, if anyone wants to do what I do, is to study a degree called industrial design. It's about drawing, it's about architecture, it's about function, it's about movement, it's about lots of different things, and it's a really well-rounded degree. So if anyone wanted to get into it, I'd suggest doing industrial design. I use all this crazy mathematics that I learnt in high school that I never thought I'd ever use. Trigonometry and algebra and all this crazy geometry and things like that. So unfortunately, kids, if you want to do what I do for a job, you need to be really good at maths. Sorry about that.
My name's Anouk and my project's called AARW. It stands for Anouk and a Rose Robotic Wheelchair. So my friend Anna Rose, her dad's in a wheelchair. So we decided, oh, why don't we help him and use a robotic wheelchair? How it works is it's powered by a dashboard underneath the building blocks base. We use a program and you put the 2 sensors on the screen of a laptop or device and you pull down code from up the top into the blocks and change the time. You would press run and it should have a button called transfer. You press transfer and you press go. The 2 squares should start lighting up. It should do that. And then you press the touch sensor that's on the dashboard and it would start to move. It took us about 4-5-ish weeks to build the base of it and then make a building blocks thing to put over the top to make it look more like a wheelchair. The hardest part probably was putting it all together because we were sort of stuck when we had to find all the right wires and the receivers and then trying to find big enough motors to make the wheels turn around and move.
How long did it take to build the Harbour Bridge?
The Sydney Harbour Bridge is the world's largest, not longest, but largest steel arch bridge, and it took 8 years to build. It started construction in 1924 and the bridge was opened in 1932. As I said, it's made from steel, a very strong and hard metal, and it took 14,000 men to build the bridge during those 8 years. Now, have you heard of a rivet before? It's a little metal pin used in building structures. Think of it like a nail or a screw, and it comes in all different sizes. Well, there are 6 million rivets in this bridge, and each one had to be driven in by hand. That would have taken a long time. Today, it carries cars, trains, and people walking from one side to the other. But when it first opened, people used to ride their horses across it. There used to be a team of painters that worked full-time on painting the bridge. And by the time they finished one coat, they'd have to go all the way back and start again. It is certainly one giant coat hanger, but I think it's the prettiest I've ever seen.
My name is Hannah Cottrell and I'm a construction site engineer. So an engineer that works in the office design the drawings, which is what is used to construct the building on site. They take all of the elements of the building and put them together. The office engineers hand over the work to the site engineer, and then from there the site engineer is the one who actually takes control of building the building. My role on site is to make sure that the subcontractors are doing their job, also make sure that all the engineering side of the building is completed on time. I also am the one who's printing all the drawings and giving them to the subcontractor to make sure that they have the correct drawing, and then from there I'm solving problems if there are any issues that are raised throughout the day, and I'll solve the problems with the consultants. I've always had an interest in this industry. When I was little, I used to draw houses. I really enjoyed that. It was like, I guess, one of my favourite hobbies, and it was what I did in my spare time. And so I always knew that I'd go into some design, construction-related industry. I was really good at art at school, as that was probably my favourite subject, but I was also good at maths. I'm studying a degree of project management. Being a site engineer is good because you're on site rather than having to be in an office all day. So that was why I decided to become a site engineer. My favourite part of the job would be working with all the different people. There's a lot of different people that you meet on site. While working with people is my favourite part of the job. It's also the trickiest part, especially being a female in the construction industry. All the workers on site, they're very hard to deal with sometimes. They don't want to listen to you. Some of them are a bit resistant. But you just got to know how to talk to them, and I guess you just got to make sure that you're firm. If I don't do my job well, the building will not be built correctly. We need engineers to ensure that the building stays upright. If we don't have engineers, or if we didn't do our job well, the buildings would fall over and cause harm or injuries to people. I love my job, the people I work with, and also everything that I'm learning. There's a lot of skills here that I can use in the future. My goal is to be able to have my own business and build my own houses. My name is Hannah Cottrell and I'm a site engineer.
I'm here with Chris from Questacon and we're talking earthquakes. So Chris, what causes an earthquake?
So Earth is actually covered in tectonic plates. And where these tectonic plates are interacting with each other, that's where we get the most of our earthquakes. So some of those plates are pulling apart from each other, some of them are sliding along each other, and the rest are bumping into each other. And where pressure builds up and is released, that's how we get an earthquake. So how about we go and feel one? Let's do it.
I'm standing on a platform that has been specially designed to reenact what it feels like to be in an earthquake. Hit it! Whoa! Now you can't see my head shake that much because my body is absorbing the shake, but watch what happens when I sit down. Whew, okay, let's go up to level 5. Wow, that was intense. Now, Chris, that was a level 5. What's the biggest earthquake ever recorded?
So the highest ever recorded was a 9.8 in Chile in 1960, which was approximately 1,000,000 times more energy than what you just felt.
And what would that feel like?
So that actually would have been so strong it would be difficult to stand in, and buildings would have been falling around the people in the streets.
So how do you build a structure that can survive an earthquake?
Well, let's go have a look. Alrighty, so to put together a building that's most likely to survive an earthquake, what we're going to do is start with the foundation.
Foundation, so the ground.
Yeah, exactly. The ground up, that's how we're going to build it. So you can see what we've got here is essentially suspension for your building. So you can see if you pick it up and have a look at it, you can actually see it's got some little jelly pads in the middle, and it allows either side of that to move separately.
Oh, so it's kind of like your elbow joint or your knee joints.
Exactly. So if we pop that on the bottom of our building,
yep, so that goes at the bottom.
that's what we're going to start with. So then we're going to use these little flat ones because the next thing we're going to put on is this structure here.
Why is there a ball in the middle?
So that ball, what that's used for is when the building shakes,
Yep.
this ball you can see is left behind each time. So if you give a bit of a wobble,
Yeah.
see that building doesn't move at the same time. So when that's on your building, that ball is preventing your building from swinging too much. It's holding it back from the swing because the weight is left behind.
Ah.
So stack it up like this one here.
So why do you actually leave a space in the middle there?
So by leaving a space in the middle, what we're doing is allowing movement in the building. Because if they're all stacked up close together, the whole building would be shaking together. There wouldn't be enough give, enough movement to stop that force from getting all the way to the top.
Right, so less is actually better.
Yes. Alrighty, shall we turn on an earthquake?
I think we should turn on an earthquake.
Alright, Nathan, let's try level 3. Alrighty, Nathan, so have a look at our buildings here. What you can see is, remember that structure down the bottom, the foundation?
Yeah, the jointy area.
Exactly, you can actually see that moving separately. So you can see the building is now separate from the ground. That's why that force is being absorbed there and the building's not shaking as much as it could be. And you can also see the ball here during the earthquake. Did you see how, as I said before, it was moving separately from the building? And that was also absorbing the force on the way up the building.
Wow, should we take it up a notch?
Why not?
Let's do it. What is that? Oh no! No!
So now I'm going to build a building that's likely to fall down. I'm going to build it nice and tall. So we're going to get rid of our foundation.
Not the joints.
We don't need that anymore. And we're going to start stacking them up straight up like this. So it's going to be sitting on 4 legs.
It's already going over.
Oh, here we go. You can see all those legs are walking.
Yeah.
Because they don't have enough flexibility.
So how come yours fell down and mine didn't?
So as you can see, what we've done is we've taken away all of the earthquake-specific engineering from my building. So we took away the ball that was moving around, absorbing that force. We took away the foundation as well, which was acting like the joints in our knees. And we've just left with the blocks that aren't very flexible. So without that earthquake-specific design, over it goes.
Thank you so much, Chris, for showing me that. Just goes to show how important engineering actually is.
One structure that stood the test of time are the pyramids. The most famous of these being in Giza in Egypt. And these have literally stood for thousands of years.
They're incredible. I mean, think about it. The builders had no modern technology to help them build or even map out their design. They are incredibly skilled.
That's right. And up to 20,000 of these workers would live on site and heave these giant stone blocks and lever each one into place. And one of the largest pyramids has 2.3 million of these stone blocks in it, each one weighing as much as several elephants.
Ouch, that's backbreaking work.
Check it out. I made a seesaw for ants. Actually, it's just a ruler and the end of a bulldog clip, but you know. If you don't know the word physics, it looks at how invisible forces act on everything around us all the time. These can be things like heat, light, and sound, even you and I. Physics looks at how these things come together and go apart. My ant seesaw is cool, but let's check out how a real one works. In physics, this type of simple machine is called a lever. A lever is a long board with an object in the middle, and this object is called a fulcrum. If you're at the playground and you're standing on a seesaw by yourself, it's not very much fun. You need a buddy to come along and push the other end so you can balance. Then you both have to push to make it move. A balanced seesaw has a fulcrum right in the middle. Okay, now we've got the seesaw balanced. Let's see what happens when we add weight to one end. We figured that was gonna happen, really. So adding more weight, so you go down, 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 and the seesaw is no longer balanced. So how do we balance out the seesaw when your older brother's on there? Maybe we could move the fulcrum. Let's see what happens when I move the fulcrum closer to the heavier end on my ant seesaw. So as you can see, it's now balanced because we moved the fulcrum closer to the heavier end and we scooted the black one closer to the fulcrum. Most seesaws, you can't move the fulcrum around, but we can do this in dance. I'm going to show you how this concept works in the dance world. I'm going to show you how physics can make you a better dancer. If you don't know your physics, you can't do this move. So to illustrate the physics of a lever, I brought my man Taz. Taz is gonna show us a baby freeze. Go ahead, bro. Whop-a! So as you can see, we got a lever right here, and all the weight is distributed evenly. If we scrunch him up and put all the weight on one side, it's not very comfortable, is it, Taz? Nah, not at all. Go ahead, put your leg wherever it feels cozy. There you go. He spread out his distance much further so that the force applied here can spread to this entire distance. Okay, let's do that move one more time, but let's see what happens when we add some weight to it. Go ahead, bro. You can see his fulcrum sitting right there, and what happens when we add a kilo over here? Now he's much heavier on one side and can no longer do the move. You will find levers all around you if you look. Wheelbarrows, scissors, and there you have the physics of breakdancing. Try making your own seesaw for ants at home.